Hi, it's Paul Monahan, and welcome to the Most Important Game podcast. In this episode, you're in for a treat. We talk once again with Tim Graves. Tim is one of the co-founders of Graves Golf Academy in Edmond, Oklahoma. It's an amazing community of golfers and amazing instruction company. And if you ever get a chance to go to Edmond, Oklahoma, and the new Graves Golf Academy Performance Center, I highly, highly recommend it. We had a conversation recently with Tim's brother, Todd Graves. Today we get a chance to talk with Tim, and it's really, really fascinating. We'll talk about Tim's performance and wins on in the South Section PGA events. Had a big win in July of this year. We'll talk a little bit about some of the mental game concepts and ideas that we teach the students at Graves Golf Academy when we get a chance to. And we'll talk a little bit about a recent experience that I had at Pebble Beach. Tim was instrumental in giving me some really great advice, and I think you will enjoy it. So here we go. All right, here we go with Tim Graves. Once again, Tim's second time on the podcast. Really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us here.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Appreciate it. It's always fun. We've done a few of these in the past. I want the second one with you on your podcast, but we've done some other ones in the past, and they're always very fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I always come away. I'm like, oh man, I could have done that for 2 hours, and there's always
exactly.
Great,
I'm the same.
Great,
exactly the same.
So,
love it.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I know you were you've been kind of bopping around a little bit, working with some of your customers and students in Florida and Oklahoma and all over the place, which is super cool. I would love to dive into a couple of things, and I'm going to dive in right away. First is, I've been reflecting about the time we spent a couple of weeks ago in Edmond at the amazing Performance Center in Edmond, the Graves Golf Academy Performance Center, which is incredible. And so we spent a couple of days working with our students, talking about the mental game. And I've really been reflecting on a lot of that and just want to dive into a couple of things. I always, I'm always there taking notes. This is like, I'm taking as many notes as, I'm
the same.
Right.
I love it.
Right. I know. Exactly. And I love this idea where you talk about, got my notes here. When it comes to the mental game and how we play and so forth, it's like basically this idea that the game itself here, and I'm kind of flipping my pages here because I gotta get to the right spot here. Yeah, we're not trying to prove anything. We're trying to elevate and grow. And you said when you play, you're trying to find out what you need to work on. I'd love for you to talk about that mental game concept, because I think it's really lost on some people when they show up wherever they're playing and for whatever reason they're playing. And I'd love to start there.
Yeah, I think I've talked to you about this in the past, but I talk about it all the time with you is, when we're teaching, whether it's a mental game school, or a alert attitude of a different school, or, I'm down here in Florida and I flew back for 2 days to teach part of an alumni camp at the beginning of this week, and then flew back. It was the quickest flight. I literally was on the same plane. It felt like going back and forth. But I mean, whether we're teaching a camp, a 3-day school, we're teaching AAI school, I'm always telling the students, I'm saying, they're always asking me, how do I get better? How do I get better? And I want dramatic improvement. I want to cut my handicap in half. I want to be able to go shoot my age. I want to be able to see some big improvement. And I always tell them one thing is and this is part of that conversation was, I suggest you go play in some events. And when I say play in events, I'm not talking about, the second they hear that, they're like, they hear me playing in USGA events or PGA events, whatever. And I said, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about playing in events that are like your men's club, your ladies club, your Tuesday night men's league, your Wednesday night ladies league, whatever it is. And the reason I say that is because I need you to set up rounds that are more important than other rounds. So in other words, when you go out and play a round of golf with your buddies on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, or you go out, Thursday night and go play by yourself, or you go play with your kids, your grandkids Saturday morning, you're out there playing for fun, obviously, but it's not something that's like you're posting a score. You're out there just having fun. And when you can do that and you can go play, we all care that to play well. I don't care if you're out there with your wife, your husband, your kids, by yourself. You want to go make birdies, you want to make pars, you want to play well. Well, when you go do that, the thing that it allows players to do, or golfers to do, is it allows them to assess what's going on. So I enjoy playing because it allows me to say, okay, I need to go work on this. I'm not hitting my driver very accurate. I'm not hitting my irons well. I'm not chipping, whatever it is. So those rounds I play let me go now determine what I'm going to go work on after the round. As you hear from good players, you hear it again and again and again. I warm up before the round. I practice after the round. And that's exactly what that is to me. Now, when you go put it in a tournament format, and it can be some, that's why I said, something you just have to post a score. It could be something you're posting a score in the clubhouse. Something you're posting a score. It's not something you're posting a score to the world. Something you're just posting in the clubhouse to go away in an hour.
Right.
But when you post a score, it makes it a little bit more important, obviously. So it ratchets up those nerves. It makes it a little bit more nervous. It makes you more nervous. It makes you, want to care about it a little bit more. So guess what? It hyper-focuses now what we need to work on because the good gets better, the bad gets worse. I mean, let's just be honest, when you're nervous. You start seeing those little bitty things that can really affect your game when you get nervous come out, and they really stand out. So when you ask me why I enjoy playing and why I enjoy playing in tournaments or why I go out there as much as I do, it's because it always allows me to figure out what I need to work on next. And that's huge for me. I don't want to just go randomly guess or, and I'm not going to criticize a lot of the way people practice and so on, because we all do it. But I want a very pointed saying, this is how I want to go practice the next day or two or week or whatever it is. And then when the next event comes around or the next important round comes in for me, I don't want to make those same mistakes. We all do. It's hard to get out of those same mistakes, but I'm constantly assessing that way. That's why when I brought that up and said that, that's why I brought that up in that context.
Yeah, that's so good. Like this, I think people think, this idea that I borrow from a mentor, Bruce Schneider, who has really thought about this and really quantified this. And you and I have talked about his energy and leadership index template, right? This idea of like the energy we bring to each moment. There's a thought that's connected to all of it, and actually he's quantified it. It's a great model, but this idea that we can bring one of two basic mental templates to our play. And one is we can be outcome oriented, and the other is we can be mastery oriented. And so this idea that, well, what's the difference? Well, in outcome orientation, we're focused on essentially what Bruce says is that we're focused on a number so that we can prove our skills to the people around us. And he said the difference between that and a mastery orientation is, in a mastery orientation, we're there to elevate, learn, and grow. It's not about proving anything.
Right.
And it's funny how often now, we'll talk about this in just a few minutes, like I just experienced this, right? It's like you step into a round that is quote unquote more meaningful.
Right.
And that part of our brain that is there to essentially justify our identity and prove to others that, oh, I'm as good as, the next guy or better than or whatever, like that really gets in the way. So I really appreciate how you talk about, look, it's like, no, just get out there and be in a mindset that says, I can learn from every part of this. And it's not about proving.
It's interesting because I've been lucky enough or fortunate enough, in particular, even more lately, to practice and play with a lot of really good players. Okay. And I believe twofold here. Number one is that you got to be around, or you should be around players that are better than you. And you should try to access that if possible. And whether you're playing in tournaments with players that are better than you or practicing with players that are better than you, it's a great learning experience, because I'm not sitting there. I mean, I talk about this, and this isn't something to say to brag or to say, hey, look at me or whatever it is. That's not what this is about. But I always talk about, I'm at a golf course that has now 28 touring professionals to play at this golf course. Okay. So you guarantee there's 28 plus players that are better than me there. And there's a lot more than that, but there is. Okay. And I consider myself a decent player. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm almost 60 now. I see my game somewhat starting to decline compared to what it used to, because I'm not able to overpower a golf course anymore. But obviously, I still want to play great. I still want to play better tomorrow than I did yesterday. I still want to play better next year than I did 10 years ago. I mean, I'm a male guy who has testosterone that wants to play good golf. Okay, let's be honest. And
I get it. Yeah.
I don't care if I'm playing by myself. I don't care if I'm playing at a tournament with 200 people. It doesn't matter to me. I want to play great. Okay, but when I'm out there practicing and or playing with players better than me, I don't have blinders on. I'm not going to sit here. I'm looking around. I'm always watching. What are they doing? Can I pick up a tidbit here or there? Can I look at something here and see what they're doing? Can I learn something from them? Can I see the way they approach over a shot? Whatever it is. And the really interesting part I've seen, and I've been able to do this in the last few years, because I went to a golf course now that has these professions that practice out of it, like the Victor Hovlands, like the Austin Eckerups, like the Gotterups. These are guys everybody at home knows. And these are guys I'm hitting balls with 5 feet away from me and on the golf course with. I'm watching them go, and they may hit balls for 15, 20 minutes, and then they go on the golf course and play 3 or 4 or 5 holes. And then they go putt and chip for maybe a half hour. They go on the golf course and play 2 or 3 holes. They don't go play like 18 holes of golf. They go out and play maybe 9 holes or 4 or 5 holes. They jump here and they start here. And I know, yes, it's fortunate that we can do that where we are. And yes, it's hard for some people to do that. But why do you think they're jumping on the golf course to go play 4 or 5 holes? They're not doing it because they've never played golf before, because they don't have any time. This is what they do for a living. This is all they're doing. They're doing that to go test what they're doing, to go see what's working on the golf course, and to go see what they need to work on. That's what they're doing. And so they're constantly going back and forth assessing. And I'm watching this, so they're not, people sit there and say you think they sit in the range and pound balls for hours and hours and hours and hours. They don't. And I'll tell you an interesting story here. You don't even know this story. I'll tell you, it's a new story. And I'll tell you, this 2 weeks ago, this was after, I think this may have been while you were here. It was while you were here for the AAI school. Mm-hmm. If you, after the school, I go out to the golf course at night. Well, actually, I'll go in the morning before the school, my home course, which is a mile and a half from our academy. I'll go out there and maybe hit a few balls. Normally I go to the academy and hit balls. But after the school, I'll go out to the course just to get away and go play a few or go practice or go see my buddies out at the golf course, my home course, Oak Tree National. Well, while the AAI school is going on was the week and a half or 2 weeks before, or the week before the Ryder Cup, whatever it was. If you remember that.
I do.
And I think I remember telling you this. The entire time we were running that school, Victor Hovland was out at the range, my range, pounding and pounding and pounding balls. I mean, I think I remember telling him, I think I told you this. I mean, with his coach, and I'm talking from like 8 in the morning till like 4 or 5 at night. It was nuts how many balls he was hitting. I was seeing him in the morning. I was seeing him at night. I was like, I'm sure he's taking breaks in between, but he was hitting, we're talking about like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of balls a day to get ready for the Ryder Cup. Okay? He was getting ready for it. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, something must be up with his swing. He must really be grinding hard now. Something's not right, because this guy's hitting more balls than I've ever seen him hit within a few days of my life. And look what happened to him at the Ryder Cup. I mean, he hurt himself. And trust me, that didn't happen that day of the Ryder Cup. That happened what he did leading up to the Ryder Cup. And I watched it. And I felt really sorry for him. Victor's a great guy. I love the kid. He's a super sweet kid. I love him. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. I talked to him before, and I'm like, I hope you win all your matches, and I hope the team loses. I was like,
exactly. I think you said that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect sentiments, yeah.
Go do great. I hope your team loses. Anyway. But I don't think people, or most golfers, understand that it's not they're pounding balls. It's getting on the course and practicing, seeing what they can do. And that's the biggest thing, and I'm sure you'll talk more about this. You hear me talk about this all the time with our students. Average golfers do not get on the course enough to practice. They've got to get out there and practice. And I'm sure you like to talk about that, but that's a huge issue.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's sort of in this bucket where we talk about most golfers sort of get this wrong, where they practice too quickly and they play too slowly. Yeah. And if we can get them to turn that around, part 100%. of practicing slower is to actually take that practice out onto the course. One of the I think one of the revelations for me as a mental game concept and as a development concept was years ago. I maybe the first or second time you and I played, and I think we were over at Rose Creek, and we played a quick 9 after a day of instruction or whatever it was, and sure as heck after we finished on the second hole, you've got 4 balls and you're throwing them into the rough on the side of the green and you're chipping. You're actually, you're not just out there with 1 ball for a score. You're out there actually practicing that really difficult chip and that really difficult chip and that really difficult chip. And you're out there, that's your practice, and you're gamifying, and you're taking your time being in a practice mode in a real environment. And I think a lot of people miss that.
It's very interesting because I'm lucky enough to be on a course now that I can find times to go out there, and there's very few people on the course, so I can go jump in the back 9 and the front 9 and find a few holes, and I can go practice. And I think the average golfer can do that if they work on it. I tell the students that now. I say, go late at night, go at an hour before the sun goes down and go jump in the front 9 if you're a public player. Go on the back 9 early in the morning. Go out there when it's really hot or cold, or go out there when, there's times you can find to get out there when the course is slow. I know I've worked at 1,000 golf courses, but it's interesting now, though. I was thinking about this the other day. I was on the golf course, and I know that on my course, like most people know the home course like the back of their hand, and I've played it 1,000 times.
Sure.
So why am I out there playing it by myself? I'm out there jumping on the golf course playing it by myself. I played this course 1,000 times, and probably 10,000 times, let's be honest. I'm out there playing by myself. Nobody's going to see it, so I'm not trying to show off for anybody. I'm not playing against anybody. I'm out there all by myself just playing. I'm not going to turn in a score. I'm just out there playing. And why am I doing that? Because it's interesting, but I know the shots and the different holes that could occur. And like on the second hole, or it's number 11, the 11th hole in the back 9, it's called a windmill hole. It's a very famous hole. It's an Oak Tree National. It's called a windmill hole. Okay, and if the pin's in the front of the green, you're hitting 130, 140, up to 160 yard shot into this pin that's incredibly hard to hold because it's a very small knob in the front of the green. To get it closer, you can get it on the green. But when the pin happens to be there, 1 out of 5 days a week, and you're playing the course, I like to hit a half dozen shots into it from 130, 140, 150 yards. Now I won't hit it from the same spot. I don't want to make a whole pile of divots. I'll move them different around. So I'm not making the green scheme. The superintendent mad.
Note to the superintendent.
I'm attacking to this pin from 140 yards out, 150 yards out. That's an incredibly hard shot to hit because you got to hit higher than normal. You got to throw some more spin on it. You got to try. It's a hard shot. Even try to put a little cut spin on it. Try to even hold it even more. Well, where do you get that opportunity to work on that shot? Anywhere but right there. There's no way you get that shot in a driving range. There's no way you get. In fact, it's very unique to even get that in the golf course. But when you do, I want to go hit a few. I don't want to try one shot. Go up. I didn't pull it off. Let's go on. I want to hit some shots at it. And it's interesting. Then I go to the next hole, and it's an extremely hard tee-ball. And when the tees are up, you got to hit a 3-wood off the tee. When the tees are back, you got to hit driver off the tee. Okay. Well, I'm telling you right now, when those tees happen to be up, and I'm hitting 3-wood off the tee that's got to go over top of a tree and hit a little bit of a draw on it to hit the fairway. When I'm on that spot, I'll hit a half dozen off that tee working on it. If they're in the back, I just hit one driver and go on. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny how when they set up the golf course, which changes every day, it gives you different shots, which gives you different things to work on. Always. And I was realizing it the other day. So I don't stop at one particular hole and work on my chipping. I don't stop at one particular hole and work on my bunker play. I sit there and look at what they set up that day and realize, wow, look at that. That's a 40-yard bunker shot on the 15th hole. If I throw a couple balls in that bunker, I can go work on a 40-yard bunker shot. Where do you get that? You just don't. Now, I'm going to put a little feather in my cap. We built our academy to do that. That's why we built our academy. Not about to do this, but for most people, you don't get that opportunity unless you get on the golf course, and that's massive. And that's why I say you've got to get on the golf course and practice. You have to.
100%. Yeah, that is, I'll tell you what, for anybody that's curious about the Infinity course at the Graves Golf Academy in Edmond, Oklahoma, you got to get out there. You got to sign up for a 2-day, a 5-day, whatever it is, get out there because it's such a great place to practice. It's fantastic.
We say you have every shot in the book except hitting over the ocean, which you just did last week, whatever it was.
Exactly.
So we get every shot in the book except hitting over the ocean out there. You're not going to get many oceans to hit over in Oklahoma, but you get ponds and creeks and trees and
you get ravines. You got ravines.
You got big ravines, big bunkers and tall lips and side hill lies and so everything.
I know, tremendous. How do you gamify so much? It's one of the things I really enjoy about your approach is like every moment you get, it seems to me, whether you're on the putting green, whether you're chipping, and that's obviously one of your superpowers, but you're just gamifying. And I think I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about why that's such an important part of your own development and keeping your skill set really high.
There's probably threefold why I gamify. Number one, the most important is if I don't gamify, I get bored. Let's just be honest.
Nice.
I mean, I'm not the guy that can go out there and chip and chip and chip for an hour, hitting a, what we call a machine gun approach again and again and again. That just bores me to death. I mean, I don't think, yes, are you getting stuff out of it? But after a few minutes, I've lost focus, like I think most guys do. And I'm like, I'm 10 minutes into the practice, I'm thinking about my car or my dog or something else. I've lost focus. So number one, gamifying keeps it exciting for me. Number two, gamifying lets me quantify it. So I can always compare. So I can sit there and say, hey, I'm trying to get 10 in a row up and down. I'm trying to hit in between these two targets. How many times can I do it out of 10 or whatever it is? It lets me compare. Because I keep mental notes, if not physical notes. I say, hey, I've got the most I've ever done on this is 11 up and down from this spot, or, whatever it is. And when I get in it, I know there's a comparison there. So it allows me to compare versus,
it's like a discrete measurement, right? So you have a discrete, it's a known thing.
100%.
This percent this time.
And I can tell you an interesting story about something that occurred to me day before yesterday with a student. I'll tell you that here in a second. That was very interesting. It involves you because he was at our AAI school. And I'll talk in a second. The third one is it really, when you gamify something, it puts nerves on it. I guess that's the best way to put it. So when you sit there and you're trying to hit a score and you're hitting zero, there's no nerves there. I understand that. But all of a sudden you're trying to do 5 in a row, 6 in a row, 8 in a row, 10 in a row. You try to do 10 in a row, you get to 8 or 9 in a row, and you realize I got 1 or 2 more to get up and down or make this putt to get 10 in a row. There's nerves on it. I don't care if it's a 2-foot putt, 3-foot putt. You have no idea how many 2 or 3-foot putts I've missed in my up and down game by myself on the side of the green because I tell myself I got to get 10 in a row before I go eat dinner. Okay, and I'm sitting there trying to get up and down around a green behind my house in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows what I'm doing. I've got headphones on, music playing, or maybe sports radio or something, and I'm trying to get up and down all by myself. I'm in my own world, and I'm telling myself I don't get to go eat dinner until I get 10 in a row up and down, and I get 9, and all of a sudden I have a 3-foot putt to get my 10th in a row up and down. There's nerves on it. I want to go eat, then because if I miss it, I go back to 0. I got to do it all over again. There's no way to do that anywhere else. But I was going to tell you a story if you want. It's kind of interesting. But
go for it.
We had a student who came to our AAI school, our mental game school. This was a couple weeks ago. It was pretty recently. And he came back to the alumni camp this last week. So this Monday and Tuesday of this week, we were teaching. And he came up to me, and during the class, there was a dozen students in the school. It was a great school. During the class, I had a Q&A session, and he asked me. He wasn't upset, but he goes, I'm getting confused, or it doesn't make sense to me. He goes, on what to work on in my game. He goes, I'm kind of lost, and he goes, I don't know how to get this fixed. I said, okay, let's start asking. So I asked him a question. I said, what do you think you need to work on? Now this is the front of the class. He goes, my driver. I said, okay, great. And I said, why do you think you need to work on your driver? And he goes, because when I go play golf, it goes right and left, right and left, right and left. He goes, I hit no fairways. I'm in the rough all the time. I said, okay, so have you kept stats on that? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, great. I said, so when you compare your stats with your coach, and his coach happened to actually be Brad, and Brad was in the room, I go, your stats are below normal for your handicap. He goes, yes. He goes, I'm about a 12 to 13 handicap. He said, sometimes it's higher than that. And then he said, I go up to can go up higher. And he goes, and the reason I know that is because I can shoot 39 in the front nine and 49 in the back, or vice versa. And it's always my driver. I go, okay, so it's a consistency. So instead of him coming to me saying, I'm just inconsistent, I want to fix my consistency, he's saying he's looked at his driver. And I said, awesome. That's okay. So you know that a big part of your fault, of your inconsistency, is your driver. So then I asked him this question. I said, Mike, how many rounds of golf do you play a week? And he looked at his wife, who was sitting next to him at school, and he goes, 3. And we all started laughing because I said, do you play more if you could? He goes, yep. So we're all laughing, and she's laughing. Okay. I said, so 3 rounds of golf. I said, okay, so every time you go on the golf course, I said, you're looking at you're how many fairways you hit? He goes, yes. He goes, because I know he gives a big deal. I said, so all you're getting out of that is analysis, results. That's not helping you fix your driver. It's just telling you your driver isn't good. So when you're on the golf course, it's just saying my driver isn't good. Okay. I said, so how do you fix your driver? So now I need a business plan to fix your driver. And he said, well, I sent video into Brad. I said, great. I said, that's the way to work in fundamentals. But how do you actively know that's helping you get on the golf course? Because it's a slow process, okay? And I said, how often do you hit range balls? He goes, oh, every other day. He goes, sometimes if I got time, a few minutes every week, a few minutes every day of the week. He goes, so I try to hit balls before I go warm up. And he goes, I try to hit balls when I'm not playing the days I'm not playing. He goes, so I try to do it at least 4 or 5 days a week for a few minutes. I said, okay. I said, how do you fix your driver on the range? And he looked at me and he goes, I work on what Brad tells me. I said, is that all? He goes, well, yeah. And I go, okay, how do you quantify that in the range? And now he's kind of lost.
Right.
He's looking at
How
me
do you
and I
measure
go,
it? Yeah.
how do you measure it?
Right.
I said, because all you're doing is saying, I'm hoping I'm doing what Brad tells me, which is great. That's the huge part.
Yeah.
But I said, how do you quantify in the range? And now he's kind of confused. And I said, well, I'll tell you what I would do. I said, I'd pick 2 targets out there, 200 yards down, maybe 150, 200 yards down, have them 25 yards wide. There's going to be poles in the range or flags in the range. Pull out 14 balls. And he goes, why 14 balls? I go, because there's 14 fairways you're going to hit in a given round typically. Now, see how many you can hit between those 2 targets. And he looked at me with these big eyes and the whole class. I said, and then do it again. Then do it again. Then do it again. That's a practice A session on the range. Now, you want to do a practice B session? Work on those fundamentals. If you want to do a practice A session, quantify it. I said, now do it again. Do it again. And I said, not only, just like we talked about, not only will it tell you if you're doing well, it'll tell you, all of a sudden you say the best I've ever done is 7 out of 14, and all of a sudden you get 5 or 6. Things start getting nervous. It's like the golf course. But here's more importantly, and this goes right into your realm. I said, what would happen if you hit 10 or 11 or 12 out of 14 in those 2 targets? Okay, which is awesome. Okay, I said, what happens if you hit 10 or 14 of those 2 targets? And then you go on the golf course and you miss every fairway. You only hit 2 fairways. There's a huge disconnect there. You're doing it on the range, but you can't on the course. So now it's not a fundamental issue. It's a mental game issue or a course management issue. And I said, that's how you figure that out. Because right now you don't know that. You don't know is it a course management, is it a fundamental issue? You don't know that. You just know you're spraying it all over the place in the golf course. You think it's a fundamental issue. And that's why I throw it at you, because that's why I enjoy so much of the mental game schools with you, because we get to take that next step of somebody who can potentially do it okay on the range, and then they go to the golf course, they kind of lose it, which is probably most golfers. But so we talked about that, and it was really eye-opening to them. Now, I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, yeah, and I think the bridge between what most people do on the range and what they do on the golf course, that bridge can absolutely be the games that they play on the range. If they're not practicing on the course, how do you create a game where it shows you discrete results? It shows you, it allows you to quantify and measure, it actually creates that pressure, like you were saying, like when same in the putting games. Like if I'm hitting 14 drives on the range, and I'm going to have a goal every time I do that, right? So I want to, and hopefully that goal is getting a little bit higher and a little bit higher, right? Over time. It may not, it might not be linear, but, so if I want to hit 10 drives and I've hit 9 and I've got 1 ball left, I'm going to feel that, right?
Yep.
And so for me, it's like, I'm really going to be focusing on certain things. Like I know for me, like as an amateur player on the same journey, by the way, as most amateurs, I know the hit impulse can come in for me, right? I'm at the top and I'm like, I got to give it a little more. And that's something I don't want to do, right? So I'm going to be making sure that I'm doing certain things on that last shot that keep me focused on the target or whatever it is, right? So, and you used the word hyper-focus before, which I love. Yeah. It's like, how do you stay absolutely focused on the task? So I think that's a great bridge that a lot of people just don't consider when they're thinking about practice. They're like, oh, where's my left hand? And, where are my feet? And that's all they do when they're on the range. And that's a mistake.
There's times for both. But, some of the best players that we've dealt with that became good players, I'm not talking about touring pros, I'm talking about guys that were 30 handicaps, 20 handicap players that became single digit handicap players or became club champions. And these are gentlemen and ladies in their 50s and 60s and 70s. I mean, seriously, that became really good players. The one theme that we hear a lot from them is they love to practice the fundamentals at home. So they'll do it in their basement, in their garage, in their office, in their den, whatever. They're in their living room, their family room, in front of the TV, watching football. They'll practice fundamentals, maybe hitting wiffle balls or foam balls, or not hitting balls at all inside, just working on positions. And then they go play and practice at the golf course. But they go play at the golf course. And they do the drill, and then they do what we just talked about. They do the games. They do the assessments at the golf course constantly. They practice at home, play at the course. But they have a very hard time going to the golf course and working on fundamentals because they constantly want to get into, is it close, is it not? They're not working on positions. And that's a real common theme we hear a lot from people who've gotten better fast. We hear that theme a lot.
Yep. So, yeah, and that is, I love that. And what people make the mistake of, oh, that's too simple. That can't be the, no, that is exactly that's the path right there. Yeah. And I know that's made a difference in my game a ton over the past few years.
Yeah.
And, it's
huge.
It's huge. It's huge. And I would say too, and something this comes up too, and you and I have talked about this, but people will say, well, I'm just out there to have fun,
Right.
And yet, by the way, they show up at these schools where they want to get a little bit better or a lot better.
Right.
And my prompt usually, or my reply usually at that point is really about, look, your subconscious knows exactly what's going on when you play golf, and it knows the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are low score wins. I'm sorry, you cannot avoid that. And every human alive has an innate part of themselves that wants to be good at the things that they do. They don't want to suck.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Right.
And so there's formula and there's a recipe, if you will, for getting better. And these are all the things that we can do to actually improve our game, which
is interesting though, and then you talk about this a lot. So you don't have to worry about caring about something, if that makes sense. Meaning, like when I go out and play in an event or I'm playing around the golf or even by myself, I don't have to sit there and psych myself out to care about this round. I'm going to inherently care about doing well. I think too many people think to themselves like, do I care? Am I going to put enough effort in because I care enough? That kind of deal. The only time that I ever get to the point where I don't care in a round is where I'm not playing well. I may be in a tournament and maybe there's a few holes left and I'm already out of it. There's just no way. I mean, I'm not, I'm 4 or 5 over par and I know a couple under is going to win and I'm done for, and it's like, okay, I'll just get out of everybody's way. And all good players, or all players kind of understand this in playing tournaments. So there's times in the golf course where you can sit there and say, do you care? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't care right now. That is truly the only time. It's always amazing. That's always the time when you start playing really good because it's like you get completely out of your own way, so you can learn from that too. But I think everybody understands that you get in that first tee, you want to do well. We will have a lot of conversations about the Ryder Cup. We have, or we will, but the funnest part of me watching, one of the funnest things watching this previous Ryder Cup for me was watching the whoop on Justin Thomas's own. The thing that was measuring his heart rate. I love it. I mean, I love as much whether you like Justin Thomas or not, whether whatever it was so fascinating. Did you see when the whoop was the highest? I mean, you think it was in the first tee with the crowds yelling. You think it was hitting that tee ball in the first tee. It was when he was standing over the putts trying to make putts. It was one of the highest when he had a 5-10 footers he's trying to make. That's when that whoop. I mean, I wish they had done it on the 18th hole. They didn't do it, but that 18th hole he made the putt on that last day, that one he made to win his match. I wish that I was praying they put that.
Show it. Yeah.
It may have been too high. It may have been off the scale. Maybe off the Richter scale. It was like, because I mean he was running 136 to 140, 145 is over putts. It may have been 200 in that one. Who knows? But that was cool to watch because of the nerves and the heart rate that he was exhibiting over those expectations he was having out there. And we all have those expectations. I don't care if you're in the Ryder Cup or playing by yourself trying to par a hole. You have those expectations. I know you talk about that a lot.
For sure. I think expectations are understandable and we all go into an outcome orientation. Like we can move in and out of outcome and mastery, but I think when we're at our best, we're like, hey, let's get up here and let's try and hit a quality shot, and let's and accept wherever it goes. Right? I mean, that would be the ideal. That'd be the ideal formula if we could draw it up, right? But because we're humans and we have this thing on top of our head called a brain, and our brain recognizes threats, and one of the most crazy threats that the brain, sees, if you will, quote unquote, sees, is the judgment of others.
Right.
And it sees that as a threat. Now, we've all experienced that. Anybody that's ever tried to stand up in front of a room and say something, right? What public speaking is like, it's a greater fear than death. I mean, what's the old saying, right? People fear things like that.
Right.
Well, because they fear the judgment of others. And we all feel that we feel that tug when we get onto the first tee. And so it's real. And so, but I love the way you talk about this, because you say, look, if you want to get better at that, get more reps in an environment where you're feeling the nerves.
Right. Whether
it's a match against your buddy for $10, or it's the member, or it's the, whatever it is. Or it's the, I have found scratch events in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and it's an amazing network of courses, public courses here. And look, I mean, the guys that win these events, these guys, they're +2 or +3 players. And I know I'm not going to win the event.
Right.
But I know that by entering the event, by showing up, by getting in the arena, it makes me a better player. So.
But the interesting part is all those people that are winning the event were where you're at right now at some time.
Yeah.
They were. Nobody woke up or was born a scratch player or a single-digit handicap golfer or whatever you want to say it. They've had to earn it. That's the beauty of this game. You had to earn it. I don't care if you're worth $1 bazillion. You could be a 40 handicap golfer. I mean, it doesn't matter. You have to earn it. You can't buy it. You can't buy this game. You have to go out there and put in the time, effort, and earn it. And the interesting part, though, is that too many people spend too much time practicing and not getting better. And so I don't even know how to call it practice. They're just putting in time in the game. We talk about this, a lot, is we talk about that a majority of golfers that practice either get no better or get worse in their practice. That's why we call our group that, our big group that we actively work with all the time, the 10%ers. And it's because those are the 10% that we feel like are getting better at the game. And it's just what you're talking about here. It's not only is it work on your mental game, but it's putting yourself in situations that will show improvement, that you can quantify improvement. Putting yourself in situations that you're working on your nerves. Because you can have an incredibly good, phenomenal golf swing. I mean, where everybody's looking at going, man, I would pay big bucks for that golf swing. And you can't manage in the golf course, you're not going to play good golf. The other day I had the same day on the Q&A session, I had a student ask me one of the questions in the morning, and it's crazy. It's the question I get at every school. And he said, Tim, can you tell me how to hit uphill, downhill, side hill lies? Okay, can you tell me how to hit those shots? And I'm like, and I sat there, and I sat back, this is an alumni school. In fact, in this alumni school, one gentleman had been to 20 schools, one had been to 15 schools of ours. Some of them was their second and third school, so it was a mixture of everything. So in alumni schools, I kind of sit back and cut to the chase, like always. And I sat back and I go, we can go out right now, and I can go do it for the 100th time. I can sit there and say, adjust your shoulders this way, adjust your hips this way, adjust your feet this way, lean into the hill, do this, understand the ball's going to go higher, the ball's going to go lower. I can tell you how to approach a shot, where to approach a shot, what's going to happen, the result of the shot. I can go show you that. I can give you the book smarts of that shot. But why are you asking me this for the 5th time or the 10th time or the 15th time? Okay, and I was asking that. I said, and I said, the reason you're asking me this is because you're not experiencing it enough. I said, the only way to learn to do this is to get on the golf course and practice it. And I said, because if you think about it, you go on a driving range. How many side hill lies you get in a driving range? How many short game facilities do you get to go practice at your golf course? There's all these severe side hill, uphill, downhill lies.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there. So I go walk around. I play at a golf course in Florida. I have 2 courses in Florida. I play at my home course in Oklahoma. We've got our academy. I'm blessed to have probably a half dozen golf courses I can play routinely. And I'm looking at these golf courses. I'm thinking about these different practice facilities. I'm like going, there's none of these have side hill, uphill, downhill lies to work at on the range, around the green, around the short game area. Now, at our facility in Oklahoma, we built a little bit of this in there, but just a little bit because it's hard. First of all, it's hard to maintain it. It just is. It's physically hard to keep grass and maintain that, so it's a very expensive endeavor. But second of all is that they just don't do it in most golf courses. Okay, so where do you learn those shots? On the golf course. And so I asked him this question. I said, here's a question for you. And I asked him two ways. I said, let's pretend you have a son or a daughter that plays softball or a son that's going to play baseball. And you take your son or your daughter to the batting cages. And you're putting baseballs or softballs in this pitching machine and you're firing them at them one after another. And let's say you do this for 2 or 3 years. You don't want to put him in there and put him in an arena that's going to, overwhelm him. And you want to be that dad that has the greatest baseball player or softball player in the world. Okay. And so all of a sudden you go from 40 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour. So all of a sudden you have this 13 or 14-year-old kid that's hitting 70 mile an hour pitches out of this pitching machine. And you're like, this is unbelievable. And you put him on the field, you put him out on the diamond. And the very first pitch he or she gets is a curveball. What's going to happen?
Yep.
And then they get a slider, and they get a cutter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, okay, what's going to happen?
Can't
that kid's going to look like they've never batted in their life. And you spent 3 years and every day cranking up your kid or grandkid or whatever it is, or yourself doing this. And now you go to real life situations, and they're going to look like a goofball out there. I mean, sorry, but it is. That's golf.
Yep.
So you sit there and you practice on level lies and working on fundamentals and positions, and all of a sudden you go on the golf course, you get a side hill lie, you don't even know where the bottom of your golf swing is. You're hitting it 2 inches behind it, you're hitting an inch ahead of it, and now you're sitting there saying, it's because I don't know the fundamentals. That's bullcrap. I'm sorry. Yeah. You haven't put yourself in that position. You know what I'm saying? And I told him, and I gave the same scenario. I said, how about this? If you don't understand the baseball scenario, okay, so now you're going to go take a tennis ball and you're going to go to your garage. You're going to hit the tennis ball against that garage door 1,000 times. How about 1,000,000 times? Work on a perfect forehand, perfect backhand, perfect forehand, perfect backhand. And then you can do that for 5 years. And then I'm going to put you on a tennis court against somebody. What's going to happen?
Yeah,
I mean, it looked like you never played the game.
Right.
You follow me here?
Because they hadn't. They literally hadn't, yeah.
Then how do people not understand that with golf? See, that's the interesting part, because this is the disconnect that we talk about all the time. How they did not understand that, because I say in baseball, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's a ridiculous conversation, Tim. Or they say in tennis, oh, that's a ridiculous conversation, Tim. And then all because they think there's an opponent. Because they say, well, see, what's happened, the difference is in baseball, there's somebody throwing a ball at you, and before there wasn't. In tennis, you're hitting against a garage door, and somebody's hitting the ball at you. But in golf, the opponent's the golf course. The opponent's the golf course. The uphill, really downhill, side hill lie, hitting into wind one day, not wind the next day. It's cold one day, it's warm the next day. That's your opponent.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and that's huge.
Unless you experience it, you can't get better at it. You can't.
Yeah. I agree. I think getting, I really love this because there's, I think part of the issue is it comes down to comfort. And here's what I mean by that. So I think people get comfortable that they can go to the range and hit balls, and it creates a comfort level for them. And I think that's a mistake, because what they really need to improve when they go play is they need to experience discomfort.
Yep.
And like when I play with you and you throw 4 balls down and you're like, oh, wow, look at that lie. Let's see if I can hit that one. There's discomfort. And you're like, oh, okay, gotcha. I can hit that. Okay, good. People just want to be comfortable on the range. And I think that's something that they have to get past.
And whether it's comfort, I love that. I think comfort and ego, I mean, however you want to say it. I mean, it crushes your ego. Like the shot I was talking about, the shot at number 11 at Oak Tree National, in the windmill hole. When they put that pin in front of that green and I'm hitting 10 shots into that, I'm lucky to get 2 to stay up on the green by that hole. I mean, my ego, it crushes your ego. It just crushes it. I mean, you hit one perfect, spins off the front. You hit one, what I'm saying? It crushed it. Yeah. You got about a 5x5 area to land it in. But what I'm saying is, but there's no way to get actively better at that unless you can accept that and just assume, okay, take the ego out of it. And I know it's very hard to do, but you just have to take the ego out of it. And it's hard to sit up on the tee with better players than you and go play with them. I mean, if you're by ego, it's very hard. It's hard to go play with players that are driving about 50 to 100 yards. That's just hard. It's hard to put, it's hard to play with players that have certain shots in the bag that you just don't have. Maybe you never had, you don't have anymore. It's that, the ego wise, you're like, wow, you know what I'm saying? But if you take the ego out of it and say, I want to learn from this. I want to experience this. I want to learn from this. That's when it becomes a cool deal. And that's when it becomes I call it an incredible learning environment. And I think and I don't think and people that don't do that, they don't understand. You can go put in 100 hours of working on fundamentals and go step up on the golf course one time with players that are better than you. And I'll tell you right now, you'll get more out of that going and playing that round with players that are better than you. You'll get more out of that. I mean, what do you feel about me? I know you agree with that,
yeah.
But.
Well, yeah, a couple things come to mind. First of all, I'm thinking about the guys at my home course, and there's a few guys that what happens is that because they're not doing the things that we're talking about, frustration is a huge part of their experience on the golf course. I mean, they haven't hit the ball yet, and they're like,
right.
It's like one of these, right? So there's number one, and then number two is I've had, look, I can get around a course. I can hit some good quality shots.
Right.
I'm not winning any scratch events in the next couple of weeks.
Good player,
yeah. Right. And I will have guys that will play with me, and they'll be like, I love playing with you. And I see them. It's crazy how guys will shoot their best scores. And this sounds weird and maybe, what's the word? I don't know. I patting myself on the back or whatever, but it's weird. But when guys will come and they'll play a really solid round, maybe even above their skill level a little bit that they hadn't seen in a while. And they're like, oh, I love playing with you because I don't know, it's something happens, but I mean, I think it's really cool. All right, that's going to be a wrap for part one of our conversation with Tim Graves. As always, I could talk to Tim for 2-3 hours, and there's just so much great content there. I love what Tim talked about in terms of practicing slower, playing faster, gamifying practice, playing on the course, all the things that get you ready to play and play to win. And we're going to continue the conversation in part two. We'll release that shortly. And Tim's going to talk a little bit more about his experience this past summer, and he had a pretty significant victory out in the Oklahoma area near where he plays often. And then we'll talk a little bit about the advice that he has for me, for us, for anybody who's going out to play those big rounds, maybe at those epic and legendary courses. So great stuff. Once again, I'm Paul Monahan. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. My mission is to help you lead, play, and perform at your best, to help my clients to play better, struggle less, and enjoy the game a lot more. If you want to find out more about the work that I do, you can reach me at paulmonahan.com. If you really like this podcast, go ahead and hit the like buttons, all the subscriptions. Go ahead, subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And thanks for, and I also want to thank Kevin Monahan for his work behind the scenes. Kevin, thanks for all your production work. Really appreciate that. And remember, stay in the game. No matter what game you're playing, you too can play better, struggle less, and enjoy the game a lot more. See you soon.